Dr. Jazz.
Got it.
Dr.
Thanks for
Jazz.
taking the time, man. You know, the first time I saw you live was in 2005 in Maribor. We actually played on the same evening on a festival here in. You were with Joe McPhee and Michael Zerang, I
Probably
think.
Michael Zerang, yeah, survival unit.
Yeah,
In
exactly.
Maribor.
Yeah, I think
Oh,
it's
where do you live?
in Maribor.
Oh, I thought you were in Finland for some
No,
reason.
no.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
Sami is a Finnish name. Yeah, so Samo is Slovenian. So
Yeah, sorry. I didn't, I didn't think about it too much. But yeah, anyway, yeah. Yeah, I remember that. I really remember that gig. Yeah, that was yeah,
yeah, so
I enjoyed that.
and then then I
yeah,
started following you. I mean, following you. You know what you've been doing, so of course. But
somewhere on the horizon. There's that guy who did that thing.
yeah, exactly. No. But
Yeah.
I want to start this talk with Terminal 4 and When I'm Falling, like which basically came out what 2 weeks ago or something like that, at least. Or
Well, I put it on Bandcamp 2 weeks
yeah,
ago, yeah.
yeah,
But it's 20 years old, roughly.
yeah. But like I love to start with this one just because of your composing and you know you've been like in these two extremes. Like you've composed these beautiful songs for me at least, and then on the other hand you have the free improv stuff, which is really out there. And but I want to start with your composing first. Like, how do you usually write or compose music? Like, where do you start, or what's your process there?
The if you mean like in the specific a particular piece, or do you mean the process of
Like in general, like
larger...
you know, because like when I listen today to that one, like and it's such beautiful melodies you wrote, you know, and this kind of like in
Well, I
general,
can tell you one
process like.
I can tell you one thing is that there's another band I had later than that called Saval,
Mm-hmm.
and it had a singer, Sophia Yenberg,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and the band came about because she found out when we were talking about this subject that I usually had sort of lyrics in my head while I was writing the music.
Ah, wow.
But
Okay.
sometimes I'd even write the lyrics. So they all start as more like actual songs. But until she came along, I always just made them instrumental pieces. But sometimes with lyrics scribbled on the side or something, or I could just tell her what they were. And so then she encouraged me, why don't you write some song? Why don't we do some of these songs with the words that you were thinking of? And then we kept sort of writing songs. So in that band, it's sort of a continuation of
Yeah.
of the Terminal 4 project, and then Saval
Yeah.
are kind of one continuum. So that's, if you think about a particular piece, it's like I have a melody in my head and maybe some vague idea of words, and then I start when I'm writing. I usually write at the piano.
Ah,
And
okay.
oh yeah. So then I'm working on trying to find harmonies for them that I like, or ostinati, or
Yeah.
or inner voicings and things like this. So then I end up writing a lot of it. But generally it's more like what the musicians get is more like what you get in a fake book, just the
Kind of lead
page with
sheet. Yeah.
the outline of the form and what the chords are and what the melody is, and then we make up our own version. And so that the people who are playing are not necessarily like playing my score per se,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
much as we're with a song that I came up with. And I've been doing that sort of in some kind of sense or other since, well, even when I was in grad school, I had kind of a band that was doing things that then became part of the book for this quartet I had called Peep. It had a record on Knitting Factory long ago. Boy, that record's coming up on 30 years.
Wow. Yeah.
And
Okay.
you know, and then I had a trio with Michael Zerang and Jed Bishop called In Zenith. Yeah, and then after that, I kind of pulled. That's when I was doing In Zenith is around the time that I got really interested in playing music of Fred Katz and studying Fred's approach. And so then I thought, you know, one thing I got from him was how to not sound weak on the cello, but to pull back and, you know, and like a less pushed and richer sound. And I was exploring that. So, and I had already writing songs and working with small groups doing realizations of them. So then, you know, that's what happened.
Where does this love
process? Well,
no, where does this love for the song come from? I mean, like, you know, this.
I love songs.
I mean, did you listen like, or still listen like,
you know,
pop stuff? Or
I was
like,
just thinking, I was telling a student the other day that like when I was 12, 13, 14, I would play the cello along with the pop radio, you know, and like the top 40 stuff, and I would just play the radio and I'd play the cello with it, and I always really enjoyed that. And you know, when I was later teenager, I listened to a lot of different kinds of music, but I kept somehow enjoying playing songs. And then I was actually, so I moved to New York when I got out of high school, and I went to music school, but then I also was playing electric bass in rock bands. But they weren't really, you know, well, one was more just a kind of pop, wannabe pop band, and then the other was more like garage rock kind of thing, and another one that was a synth pop band that I played mostly synthesizers in. So anyway, so that was like even in the when I got in high school, I don't know, I like a good tune, you know.
Yeah, no, it's you know, when you listen to Ornette, it's a melody. It's all about the melody.
Yeah, but my melodies aren't the super. I mean, sometimes I write more kind of complex, harmonically, you know, elaborate lead lines, but a lot of times I just like a simple tune, you know. So
yeah, no, I love that. I love that, man. It's like listen to a Paul Motion composition, and it's like, you know.
Well, that's he's on a whole nother level, but
12 notes, yeah.
Like, thank you. Anyway, yeah, man. So so there we started with the Terminal 4, When I'm Falling.
Yeah.
and
then yeah, no, but you know, you mentioned this pop music, and of course listening to the radio, and like, what about jazz? What got you excited for jazz and especially improvisation? I mean, when was that? You mentioned like Company and Derek Bailey before, and like, what was the moment that you said like, shit, I want to do that?
See, for me, improvising and jazz are, as I grew older, I could see more. So I started playing the cello, but with no lessons or anything when I was very, very little, just as a toy, a noise box thing. And my dad was also trying to make guitars that were failures for playing, you know, the Weavers songs. But so I had all these kind of music or noise sound toys, and I was just really into that. And then when I was 10, I got the opportunity in school to take cello lessons, and that sort of set me on this pathway, you know, like a lot of kids, you want to do what your teacher says, and you want to excel, and you want to play, you know, whatever it is, and so it's almost like a cult in a weird way. But so then for like 10 years, I was studying traditionally cello, but I was still I'd been exposed to a lot of esoteric music through my my parents and their friends. They had a lot of friends who were jazz musicians or composers or painters or artists. The guy who left the cello at the house was an artist who was going off to India on a Fulbright or something. I don't know. So anyway, so I was really into all that and making noise and sound, and I had a pickup, and I was writing kind of pieces for myself. for electric cello, and playing like in a kind of creative, local creative ensemble. It was like 7 or 8, and a lot of original music. And they had a cello in the band, you know. And anyway, at a certain point, I realized that I kept playing classical cello, but I really didn't understand what people liked in jazz. You know, like I played on the radio. The band played on like this kind of local festival, and it was live on the local radio. And you know, and my dad was like, "Wow," you know, he didn't come to the gig, but he said, "Oh, I heard you on the radio. It was fantastic." You know, man, I didn't realize it was you. I was like, I wish Fred was here to hear this guy. You know, whatever. I don't know. And I was just like, I thought it was the worst solo I'd played. It was just awful, a humiliating, awful experience. So then for a number of years, I had nothing to do with jazz at all. And I played classical music, and I played rock music, and I did electronic music, and I was improvising with my friends, but we call it, you know, it was just free music. Or even like in the 70s, a lot of people called some of this kind of stuff space music, which, you know, I kind of get what they meant, but it wasn't like we weren't spacing out, man. It was just like there was space, and you know, I don't know, but so I was improvising in high school and in even at conservatory. I was it was, you know, late 70s, early 80s, and it was very rare to have a pickup on your cello, but I did, and everybody thought that was really weird and what's wrong with that guy, but you know. And so then I finally, after 2 years of conservatory, I was like, I never go to these kind of concerts. I don't buy these records. I really don't know one conductor from another. You know, as soon as I leave school, I run downtown and I go to hear John Zorn, or I go to play a gig at CBGB's or something, you know, and that's what I really am excited about. And so then I just quit, and then I just, you know, went off. I ended up studying composition, which, you know, I don't know. Anyway, as a way, because you couldn't really in those days, the idea of going to school to study free improvising or improvising was, you know, it was just, nobody did that. It's the closest thing you could do was composition, and maybe you'd learn, you know, the fundamentals of writing music, which I guess sometimes could be applied to approaches to improvising. So I don't have any regrets, but I didn't really, you know, after the couple of years at Manhattan School, I never really had a cello lesson or played the. Anyway, you know.
Oh, interesting.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, sure. I've read that you studied composition with Braxton. What?
Well, yeah, that was in grad school. Yeah.
How was that like? I mean, you know, he's Braxton. How were the lessons with him? I mean, and like.
Well, you know, he doesn't do private lessons. Now, he announced to the class at the end of the first semester that I would study privately with him going forward. So I think he did that more just to make everybody else hate me. But still, lessons with him were quite infrequent, erratic, and could be anything from, you know, looking at my scores, looking at his scores, listening to music, improvising, playing fake book tunes. That's what I was going to say. So up until I went to grad school with Braxton, who I went more considering him a composer and an improviser, and you know, and a pioneer and an explorer, and I didn't really fully understand his depth of love of the African American classical tradition, sometimes known as jazz. And so when I was there, then he kind of wanted me to listen to those records and memorize solos off of records, and so I could, and not, you know, not to play them, but to sing them back to him. You know, this thing he does. You know, he can sing whole Charlie Parker solos.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So anyway, so they were just kind of all over the place. Studying with Braxton was less about technical, like, you know, stuff. You know, before that, I'd say with Benita Marcus, and through her with Morton Feldman. And they were all, they're not technocrats, but they are very, very concerned with the you know, some of the technical aspects that I don't think interested Braxton all that much. So so, you know, he wasn't gonna, you know, he was more interested in the conceptual aspects, which is why I was there anyway, and what I was interested in. So it wasn't a thing, but it was different than the more European teachers that I'd had before then.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, but still, I mean, that's
just a great thing.
Yeah, to be with the guy, you know, that's like.
Yeah, and he was very conscious of the
amazing.
fact that everybody wanted, even then, everybody wanted to be with him. So
yeah,
you know, he kind of already was protecting himself, and at this point, I think he said to me once, if I gave everybody just a tiny bit of time, I'd have no time to do anything I
sure.
want to do.
Yeah,
So,
I can believe that. Yeah, sure.
I can totally believe it. You know.
Yeah,
so,
definitely. But you actually started playing with him also, right? I mean, like you started to play with Anthony also, not only lessons, right?
Well, he was yeah, we played in the lessons, and I played in some of his ensemble things. And he was very generous, you know, and he's still, I don't know what he's doing right now, but while he was teaching at Wesleyan also, you know, he would help out a student by recording a piece of theirs or having them play on a record of his, and, you know, so. But then when I moved to the city after this was, I was sitting with him in California, and then we both were back on the East Coast, and I was up a couple times to Middletown, I think it's called, anyway, Wesleyan. And then he started that 30-piece orchestra that we did at the kitchen. And then a month after that, I moved to Chicago, and I couldn't, you know, the budget wasn't there for them to fly me around, and I just couldn't, you know, fly back to New York to be one of a bunch of people at the knitting factory on a door gig, you know. So
definitely, sure.
As much as it was a great honor to be asked, and you know what I mean, but you know, it's
sure.
You know, I wish if I was in that financial situation, it would have been fantastic. You know, I would probably done it and rent an apartment.
I know what you mean.
Come and play gigs with Anthony whenever I'm given the opportunity.
No, come on, But how come you decided to move to Chicago? I mean, since you played with Anthony Coleman, I have the record one, and you know John Zorn and the downtown scene. You were kind of getting into the scene. I mean, like, but
well, I mean, everybody, you know, I was lucky that I got to do as much as I did, but everybody wants to be more in the scene, I guess. But I didn't leave on my own choice. My wife got a very nice offer at University of Chicago, and and we thought about being sort of long distance for a bit, and then I was like, nah, fuck it, let me, you know, because I was hanging out with a lot of people. I mean, you know, I wasn't really, you know, heavy in the scene, but I was in the scene enough to know up close and personal a lot of my heroes, and to see how, like, they're just hanging on, man, you know. And you know, and so I was like, well, I can't really ask her to just stay here and do, you know, La Boheme, and then we can die a beautiful death of some disease or insurance, you know. So I was like, okay, well, let's check it out. And then I got to Chicago, and I got really just lucky, you know. I mean, speaking of like Braxton, he's like, when he moved to Paris, he said it was just like he just landed and he bumped into people he knew, and before he knew it, he was doing stuff. And I didn't really know many people in Chicago, but I had enough connections via some New York people, and you know, just immediately met a bunch of musicians that I still work with today, and you know,
who were these guys? Who were these first connections? I mean, that you met?
Well, before I even got there, I met a guy who remained nameless, but he asked Michael Zerang if he wanted to do a trio with me. And so, and I knew of Michael just from this band Liaf Munamula that I had seen once play 10 years earlier, kind of thing. But anyway, he booked one of the first gigs was like 3 days after I moved to town, I guess. But anyway, and so Michael and I just immediately, like during the break, we're like, wow, great to meet you. Yeah, well, we got to play more. You know, forget that guy. And so so we fulfilled the contract of whatever gigs that guy had set up, and but we started doing other things. And then he asked me to do this thing with Jim Baker and this guy Dan Scanlon and Kent Kessler for a puppet show. And then immediately they were like, "Oh, you want to do this? And when you play on this gig?" And then I met, Mars Williams, who I had met but only as a fan. Called me and said, "Hey, do you want to play at the Velvet?" And then Vandermark, and just like, it was amazingly lucky. People were like, "What the fuck?" What the fuck? But it didn't hurt. I think that John Corbett also had met me when I still lived in New York, and maybe said nice things. And so, anyway, it was really cool to just immediately feel like a community there. And then what I liked a lot in Chicago, it's smaller. It's a lot. Because it's smaller, that like the kind of rock crowd, the Skin Graft and Thrill Jockey and Drag City people were all around, and and they kind of had to be more friendly to each other, and then they were also, I think, more friendly to like the jazz and improvised crew. Even if it wasn't really what they did or wanted to do, it was just like there was a sense of community that, like in New York, it was really like such narrow little genres that you were part of this group, and that was your group, and don't come over here to our group, and so it was more interchange. And then I got to play with a lot of those guys, and because like I said earlier, I really like songs and stuff, so I had a good time playing songs and playing lips and glops,
Yeah. No, you came, I think, in such a good time. Also, I talked the other day with Tim Daisy, and like especially this mid-90s in Chicago, I think it was some sort of a revival or explosion, I'll put it like that, of new music in a sense, or continuation what's been going on. I don't know how you experience that, but like there's like group of 30 people, including you, who has done amazing stuff, and
yeah. I mean, a lot of them did. Well, I mean, I don't want to overstate things, but I mean, there was definitely already. Well, it was interesting because when I got there, the AECM was just getting reborn, also. Because Nikki Mitchell had decided to take it over.
Oh yeah,
because
exactly.
like Synod said, I played with Leroy Jenkins just shortly before we moved to Chicago.
Oh really?
And I told him that I moved to Chicago, and he just laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed. And what are you gonna do there? Oh my God, there's nothing there. Oh, this is terrible. Why are you doing that? And it's like, well, I'm doing it. And Braxton had said, like, oh, there is no AACM anymore, or something, And so then I get there, and I meet Nikki, and we're actually playing Bach. She's playing Bach flute sonatas, and I'm playing continuo at a art opening or something, And I told her, about Braxton saying he didn't think there was AACM. We have to work harder, but they were building something really interesting. And then at the same time, Corbett and Ken Vandermark had been, beating the ground pretty hard for a number of years, playing a lot of gigs for 3 people, and sending out a lot of cards and putting up posters and writing music and organizing things. And, and so it might have really kind of started becoming visible in the mid 90s, but the sort of groundwork was for like at least the 5 years before. Both the AACM oriented and North Side, more white guy free improvising and jazz players. But and then Ken and John were very surprisingly successful at luring European improvisers that people like here from records but hardly ever get to see to come and play in Chicago. And so that also kind of drew attention to that scene in a way where there was, sort of people who just would go to the Empty Bottle on Wednesday night, even if they weren't sure who was playing, or they would just look at the calendar, to make sure they wouldn't miss Misha Mengelberg or something, you know what I mean? So, So, and then, anyway, but so that a lot of that really goes to just a few people who really worked their asses off in not only musical overt ways, but in,
Yeah. It's like speaking of European improvisers, how did you connect with Peter Bretzmann, you know, who passed away? And I think you're one of the rare players, you know, you got to play with him, you know, in the larger groups and the tentet and but a lot of duo playing also. And I think that, yeah, I wanted to ask you, like, playing, I mean, I never played with Peter, but I've seen him live many times. But playing duo with him, how was that like for you? You know, that must have been like intense as hell, right?
Yeah. It evolved over the process, of course, but it helped that that, you know, well, first I want to say that, you know, just getting to work with Peter again was, well, Mars has to factor into that. Mars and Ken proposed to Peter to come to Chicago, and they said they would put together a group and we would play maybe some of our own music and a piece by Peter. And that was the first time. That was still an octet. And they asked me to do it. And Peter would have not wanted it. You know what I mean? It was like, oh, the fucking cello player, okay, you know. But then after the concert, he said, "Oh, you know, usually I hate cello players, but you're, you know, okay. Next time I write more parts for you," or something like this. And so, you know, and then we had all those years. I mean, I don't know when the first duo record is from, but we had already been doing the tentet for a number of years, and having a, you know, a fairly good social relationship, art interests, and just general kind of, you know. Anyway, he was always very very supportive, let's say. And so when the idea of a duo came up, I wasn't like, oh my God, this guy who I don't really know and I don't know what to expect. And this is a guy who I've talked about, like, you know, Italian movies and about how he loved Spam when he was a little kid, and, you know, things like this, you know, personal shit. So it's like, okay, well, I'm playing with Peter. The scariest part of playing with Peter in the first years duo was that I always knew that everybody knows Peter and everybody loves Peter, and if they don't like the gig, it's going to be my fault. You know, seriously, you know, like, you know, you can do okay, or you can do terrible, but Peter will always be Peter, who is the real thing. And it's Peter versus the guy, the cello player. Oh, you didn't do so bad. Or, oh my God, it was great, except for the cello player. I hated that shit, you know. And then when Peter would stop and the cello player would play on, without Peter's like, why didn't you stop? You know what I'm saying? I don't know. That's like, I might be over psyching myself, but that's actually the experience that I would, or the thoughts that I would have a long time ago. And then at a certain point, you know, you just kind of just like, well, you know, we're gonna just play together and fuck it, and I don't really care. And you know, and I don't know if the music's better or worse, but because of that. But you know, in the last few times, or also that trio with Heather, who was their kind of weirdo duo partner. You know, it's just like, well, you know, I just play. If he hates it, he hates it. If the audience hates it, then fuck it. You know, I don't care. You know. Anyway, you know. So, but in there, yeah, I know. I can imagine if you never really talked to him, met him, only it's like a blind date thing, it would be terrifying for a lot of, not everyone, but I bet a few.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
But you remember the first duo gig? I mean, like where it was? And
oh. I think the record is the first time, but we might have played at an art gallery. The first record, the Brain of the Dog, might have been that first duo gig.
Oh wow, okay.
If we did duo before that, it was on one of those sort of you know, when the tentet would do a couple nights and there'd be different duos and trios and stuff like that. But the first concert, I'm pretty sure, was there. But then around that same time, we played at another gallery in Chicago. And then we had a tour, and I don't remember even
Yeah.
where that tour started. But do you know Touchdown Jesus?
No,
You ever heard of Touchdown Jesus in Ohio?
no.
There was this gigantic outdoor sculpture that was Jesus from the waist up, coming out of the ground with his arms up, like, you know, the camera like this, you know.
Yeah.
But he was sort of rising on the ground, but he's, you know, like he's like 50 meters tall or something, you know. I mean, I don't know, it's a huge thing. And so we're
I'll
driving,
Google it. Yeah.
just me and him, we're driving on the highway, and he's looking at his phone, you know, doing something, and then I was like, "Hey, Peter, look at that!" And he looks up and he goes, "Jesus Christ!" Anyway, I don't know why, but that was really memorable. And then Touchdown Jesus got hit by lightning not long after that and burst into flames. And turns out it was made of like a lot of styrofoam or something. If you look it up, you can see.
Yeah,
the
I'll check it out. I don't
thing,
know.
but
I don't know.
anyway, that was early on in the duo thing, and I think maybe also that, you know, kind of broke down some barriers, or
Yeah,
you know,
sure. Yeah.
you know, when you have an experience like that, you know.
Yeah,
When you
the more
see,
you play, the more you socialize, the more you
yeah,
get to
and the
know each
more,
other.
but like when you see him freaked out by something, Jesus Christ, you know,
Yeah, with this German, yeah.
yeah, you know, it's like, yeah,
Uh,
okay, man, you know, yeah, I know what you mean. I feel you. Anyway,
But I mean, I know you know, with Peter and with other players, you started to come a lot to Europe. But who was the first time you went to Europe with to tour like as an improvising musician? I mean,
oh, okay. See, I had been coming to Europe with a band called God is My Co-Pilot.
okay.
Did 2 different tours, both of which were like a month.
Oh, wow.
And then I want to say the first time that I went to Europe after that, really as an improvising musician, was about 95 or 96,
95.
and it was
Okay.
a solo. I went by
Wow.
myself. I mean,
Wow.
I had some contacts there already, you know, musicians that I had met living in New York, like Philippe McCole, who's passed away a while ago. I didn't know him. Definitely Philippe. Oh, Uli Rate. Anyway, some different people that I already knew, and then I knew of some venues. And no, the first time that I went as an improvised musician, I went over with Michael Attias. Do you know him?
Yeah, sure. Really?
Yeah. Michael Attias and I went to play quartets with Rajesh Mehta, a trumpet player,
Yeah.
and a guitar player who was a friend of Raj's, and I honestly don't remember his name. He was okay. He was good. He was good. But that whole tour was like kind of a catastrophe. So anyway, yeah. But we were only in Holland and we played improvised things, but we had like 5 or 6 gigs. I don't remember.
Oh.
Anyway, but then I did the solo tour, which is also memorable for me because I was walking down the street in Antwerp and a guy I apparently jumped out of a window and crashed on the sidewalk, like right in front of me. And you know, that was you know, one of the more traumatic
Oh
tour
my God,
experiences.
man.
I was by myself, you know, on a solo tour for 10 days or something.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah.
Anyway, it was
Oh shit.
crazy. But anyway, it's a long stupid story. But yeah, I don't know. And then, you know, I don't remember what the next thing was, but I had definitely been popping back and forth
Yeah.
with different things before the 10. Oh, and Mats brought me to Sweden I was in the first new ensemble, Hydros 1, if there's a record, but
Sure. Yeah, sure.
right. And that was an early time going to Europe, but I don't remember all that. Oh, Mars, we had this band Witches and Devils, and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like
I don't know.
what Mats was doing in Sweden, and you know, Ken in Chicago, and like
Right.
and Peter, and all these joined together like into this. I remember you know, like in Maribor, like David was organizing concerts, and like, man, we had like a huge audience here in Maribor just on the, you know, because people kept coming here from Chicago or from Sweden, or you know, it was, and people got used to it, you know, listening to the thing and like grew into it. Like, yeah, man, you know, it's like a pop concert and or on a Brötzmann trio gig or whatever. And I was like, man, people, you're listening to like really some crazy improvised shit, but everyone was like, yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I
Beautiful.
always got the impression that like that there was this kind of longer history there of viewing like free music as a rebellious art form or something, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
is a kind of a secret underground club
yeah.
that you could belong to, where you'd become like aware of this music and you go to people's apartments just to listen to records and be very quiet and play the whole record through like a concert. So it never shocked me that like in a lot of the former East
Mhm.
countries, that there was a kind of a deeper excitement about music than in places where it's kind of more taken for granted. Oh yeah, it's
Mhm.
that wacky stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
my
true,
dad saw Ornette in 1961. You know, whatever.
true.
That kind of thing. But yeah, there where you are, it was a little bit more of a kind of a statement of identity or something.
Yeah,
Maybe.
but I agree. Yeah, it's more appreciated than definitely. I mean, I
Yeah.
kind of, I think with Machine Gun, it all started with Brötzmann already. You know, it's kind of rebellion
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
idea. I mean, you know,
But in the
and
West, everybody's so like, pleasuring themselves to death or something, that they don't really want to do that anymore. They just went,
yeah, man, exactly,
awesome. They're having a good time.
exactly. No, but the otherwise, Fred, what about Joe McPhee? When does he enter into your musical scene? I mean, you know, since I saw you guys here in Maribor, and I love that band, you know, with and you
Well,
and Joe are amazing together, right? So
I love Joe. Um, well, I mean, I the first time I heard of Joe was somewhere in the early '80s from a friend.
already, well, okay.
And I checked him out. I liked him. I can't say that in those days I was more into punkier and more aggressive, noisy kind of, stuff. But I liked him. Yeah. Then when I moved to Chicago, he came out to do something with Ken and
Mm.
Kent, really beautiful record. And I went to that concert, and it moved me much more than I had that experience in the past, or I could relate to it more or something. I don't know. But then it was then he got invited to make part of what Mats and him made the octet into the tentet.
Yeah.
And I was really impressed by the way that the band became much more intelligent with Joe or something, that he brought a kind of a vibe to the band that up until then, I've said this in other interviews, like it's just a bunch of guys, including myself, jumping up and down and making a lot of noise, trying to go with Braxton. I mean, go with Brötzmann, and we're charging, whoa, and then Joe came and he's kind of like, and then people stopped a little bit. Thought, I think a little bit more about what I'm doing, and but then we just kind of went on that way for a number of years. I don't remember how many years, but we were both in the tentet, and then on one of the tours, he asked Michael and I if we wanted to just do a recording session for supposed to be for Hat Art or Hat Hut,
Yeah.
a hat, and we were like, yeah, sure, we'd love to try that, and we even set up a couple of gigs right around it, sort of a pre-recording, just to kind of get a vibe. As the date got closer, Ullinger decided he didn't like the project, and he bailed, or he canceled, or he told Joe, no, I'm not going to do it. So we lost all the money that was gonna, helped cover the tour, and Joe's travel to Chicago and the session and everything. But Joe was, fuck, man, let's just do it anyway. So we did, and we kept doing it because we liked doing it.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, it's a bit.
I mean, it's been a few years actually. The last record came out a year ago.
Yeah.
And it was recorded maybe 5 years ago, and we haven't played since then, unfortunately.
Ah, okay.
I don't know. Yeah, we just even then we were kind of slowing down, in terms of work with that particular lineup. But
yeah,
maybe one of these days. It's a question of budgets, getting Michael from Chicago and me and Joe from around here. And now Joe is definitely, I mean, he's in London right now, and he was just in Chicago, so it's not like he's not doing anything, but he kind of feels like he is less interested in seeing how much stuff he can do.
Sure. I mean, he's like 80, right? Or something.
83.
83, yeah. Shit, man.
I think he's older than Brötzmann by 6 months.
Amazing.
But yeah, so I mean, so anyway, he's still out there, he's still working, he's doing it, but and but he definitely tells me like it's wearing thin. So
yeah.
I don't know if survival unit's gonna do anything. Maybe I would love it, and write your congressman is all I can say, because I got no control over those.
No, sure, I get it. But Fred, just two more things to ask you, not to take too much of your time, but like when I check my record collection, I have you on so many albums, it's kind of scary almost, but you've been involved, in the how much music you've made in a positive sense. It's like you have with the US improvisers and the European improvisers. I wanted to ask you, how did you connect also with the UK improvising scene? You mentioned Company before, and I know you played with John Butcher and Mark Sanders and John Edwards and all those guys. How did that story begin with those guys?
Well, I mean, the Butcher was just, again, like he was coming to Chicago every now and then to play, and he was. I doubt that he asked the first time before he'd ever met me. I doubt he said, "Oh, could I play with Fred Lonberg-Holm?" But he was looking for some people to play with, and somehow I got to play with him on one of his gigs. And then he had he was making a record, and he recorded some stuff with. Well, we ended up with two different. One time it was sort of a record of his grab bag with different people, with Zerang and me, and then we made another record that's the whole way through his trio with Zerang. And then, the problem is in England is sort of like the US, in that there's very, very little support really for the kind of stuff I do. And so when I was going to London, like when I played with him and some of those other guys the first time, I was on my way to Copenhagen for the jazz festival there. And they were cool with me getting a ticket that stopped over in England for like a week, and that was great. But and then other times it's been sort of like, if the Tentet was in England, if the tour ended there, maybe I'd stay on, or or maybe I'd get there before a tour started, or or the Vandermark 5. I think we played a bunch of gigs, and I remember staying after that and going to. Anyway, that kind of thing, but I haven't gone there as often because they have, you need to have a work permit.
Now it's
like the US. I'm not putting them down, but
no, but now it's terrible.
The venues don't have any support, and I love the musicians. After I was there one time, memorable with John and I played a duo, and Law Coxwell played solo, and three other guys who were very good, but I'm not so good with names, played a trio. And afterwards, we all got £5 each, and it cost like £4.20 just to take the tube back and forth to the gig. And I bought a hard cider for £2. So You know what I'm saying? Is
I
it,
know what you mean. Yeah, yeah.
I came back to the US and I would say to people, I don't want to hear any whining about, oh, I only get $12, I only get $25. You know, if you do the gig, you know, and you know but you know, there's people who are like super awesome musicians like Lal Axel and John Butcher playing gigs for £5 and you know, they don't whine and cry about it. They're just realistic. That's what it is. They try to get something. They're not saying this is great, but this is sort of like, you know, stuff. But you know, it's like, you know, that's what it is. But so a lot of respect and a lot of great musicians there. And then I was lucky other times with like Survival Unit, got to play there. You know, a lot of times if we do play there, we have to play a couple nights in a row to make it worthwhile at like Otto or, you know. And so anyway, and then, you know, sometimes then I get to like Stevens, you know, we recorded a duo the day after a gig before I had to get back in the city to play the next night. It was like a daytime session and stuff like that. So I like that.
Yeah, no, it's heavy that there. I know. I mean, I know many musicians in the UK, and it's just now after Brexit, it's became even harder for them. You know, it's But anyway,
I'm going to be there at the end of August, but with a singer-songwriter.
Oh, really?
But playing several gigs, and one of the ways it can work is we're playing the end of the road. It's kind of a big deal in the kind of more singer-songwriter folk scene. So
oh wow, beautiful.
Yeah, we're not getting to Slovenia, but we go over to the continent for a while, and I'm looking forward. Do you know Simon Joyner?
No.
No, anyway.
He's a singer, a songwriter.
Omaha. Yeah, he's a.
I mean, I love singer-songwriters, so but I'll check him out. Simon Joyner.
He's an OG, man. You know, Bright Eyes.
Bright
Connor
Eyes.
Wait, he's kind of a mentor role model for Connor.
Oh, okay, cool.
For interviews, I don't know, but
I'll check
anyway,
him out.
Simon, he's older. We've been friends forever, and his booking agent was like, "Hey, why don't you put together a group for this tour?" And so he asked me, and I'm like, "Yeah, okay, you know, fine."
Yeah, well, come on, that's beautiful.
It's been a long time, and it'd be really nice. And
you love songs. Come on.
Yeah, you know Michael Krasner?
No, also no.
Yeah, he's that box set ensemble.
Yeah.
Okay, well, anyway, that's the three of us, and
so
it should be really nice. And I'll get to see what's going on in England. I haven't been to England since before the pandemic, so
sure. Yeah,
you know.
Beautiful. Yeah, I mean that was my next question. What's on the schedule for you for the remainder of the year? I mean, also regarding you as a band leader, do you have some stuff coming up or like recordings or?
Yeah, it's always hard to. No, not right now. I'm hoping to have I'm not writing songs or doing those kind of bands right now, but TS and I have a quartet with Matt Maneri and Tom Rainey.
Oh wow, man, that's killing.
Every time it's been a special joy. So we're hoping to try to record that.
Wow.
Matt Maneri and I just recorded duos actually just last week.
Oh, seriously? Wow. Improvised or?
Yeah. But I really love that.
Wow.
But you know, I got some local gig things and then I go out with Simon, and then I'll be in Portugal for a little bit and do some gigs. This Transition Zone, a trio I have with Abdul Mamim and Carlos Santos. We have some gigs coming up then, and we're just wrapping up the second record. The first record was a little bit ago, and anyway, let me think. Anyway, that kind of stuff, but no, not big deal. Looking forward. Sunday, I'm playing with the Creative Music Studio, kind of local improvisers orchestra, kind of expanded version in memory of Carl Berger. Very recently, and Peter Apfelbaum is supposed to be.
Oh wow, man! Okay.
Yeah, so that could be cool. A dog. Anyway, stuff like that.
Cool. I'm looking forward to if you guys record with Michael
Yeah.
and Tom and that group. Man, that sounds awesome. So
It's like I said, it's been a
Yeah.
real pleasure. We all want to do it. It's just a question of figuring out how
sure.
to make it work out financially, so
Sure.
we're not all like where somebody isn't left holding a really ugly
Sure,
bag.
sure.
But
Cool.
yeah, man, I don't know.
Cool, Fred. I'll leave you be a nice Friday afternoon, and and I hope hope to catch you in Slovenia or in Europe sometime for a beer or wine or whatever.
I when I get invited someplace, if it can work out, I try to make it. So.
Yeah.